even when we do, even when we do finally, kind of make it past first base, whatever that means to you, you don't know, because there could always be someone else. How do you know? How do you know? How do you know this was the right one? You could be even living together for, I don't know, 4 years. And still, I don't know. I'm just not ready to commit. And I think a lot of people are holding at that time, kind of at that bump where everything is checking out, everything is good. And so then they get the question, so are you getting married? Are you engaged? No, not yet. And most people are tactful enough not to ask, what are you waiting for? But now we're going to talk about that. Now we're going to ask that question. What are you waiting for? And for many people, the simple answer is that I just don't really see, I don't have that final push to say yes, because I just don't know, right? Because maybe there's always this, there's this funny comic strip I one time saw, those one frame comic strip, like The Far Side, or like those in the New Yorker's been famous for them, right? So you have a picture of a visibly wealthy, relatively elderly couple that are vacationing somewhere on the beach, somewhere in the Hamptons, wherever. And one is telling the other, like, wow, think about all those parking spots available back in the Upper East Side, right? So you have what you need, right? But there's so many other parking spots that may be available. So who knows, right? So we're going to talk about that. So to begin, we're going to start with an exercise because that's always fun. And what I feel very, very, very dated right now. I can't put my phone. It's like it's up in the screen. Yes.
Kind of backtracking a bit.
Sure.
So, we went from talking about, dating for fun versus dating for marriage. And then we talked about like love, chemistry, infatuation, the differences of those. And now we're talking about like, okay, you found the person and how do you know if they're ready to commit? But what about the in-between? Like, what is your recommendation for the best way to go about finding somebody who's going to be compatible with us, lining up the values, all that stuff. You had mentioned Shadchan before. I don't know what your thoughts are on online dating, but I know that you mentioned that the likelihood of you meeting somebody that's going to be a good fit for you for marriage in person is very low. So I'm curious to know what your recommendations are on how we get from here, single life, to finding this person where you're contemplating, is this the person that's right?
Okay, good question. So why don't we do that before we start this?
Okay.
Good question. And by the way, just for a clarification, yes, I said that what we're going to talk about now is when you're certain you're just trying to get over the hump. But the ideas and the big idea that we're going to share today is not only for that stage; it's also for prior, for before that. So it's not going to. So in case you feel like I'm maybe moving a little too fast here, so rest assured it's relevant.
That's fun, right?
Pun intended. That the insight will hopefully be relevant and helpful, even if you're still in the batter's box, not yet at first base. So we'll see. I use a lot of baseball metaphors because that's the sport I know the best. So sorry if you're a football fan. And if you're not a baseball fan, then you have to ask me to explain. So to answer your question, what do I think is the best? I still do think the best idea is a shot. Now let me clarify. I have had a discussion about this with some colleagues as well. Shotgun is a little bit of a scary word. We're going to talk about it again today. Okay. So when I say shotgun, I don't only mean in the rigid format of like the person, man or woman, who has like a resume and they do this, they kind of play the game of poker all day, matching people up. And that's obviously that has a place. And that's definitely, I would absolutely say that that's a good idea. Get those people on board as well. That's more commercialized. So I think a good word, I'm gonna use this word here before. Good word is advocate. Any third party, because a lot of the homework that you're going to have to do, a lot of the homework that needs let me rephrase it. A lot of the homework that needs to get done does not have to be done by you. Doesn't have to be done by the two of you. Fumbling through it as you go along, because you're wasting each other. When I mean the two of you, I mean the two people on the dates, because you don't need to waste each other's time, right? We're all, we're not kids anymore. We're not wasting our time. We're not kids in college. Just following for the first thing that looks pretty. We're more focused, and we want to move forward. So a lot of the questions that need to be asked do not have to be asked by you or by the potential suitor. So get an advocate. Like, I think, yes, it doesn't only have to be a professional shop. Be a friend. Get your friends on board, or get your rabbi, Rebbitzin, anybody who you know, and let them know, and not anybody, because then it gets like kind of ridiculous, but at least a handful of people who are serious people, who know you well, who you could trust will advocate for you, are not going to stay behind your back, oh yeah, she's really insane, and will look out for you. And that's number one. And number two, like we also talked about this before, you could obviously keep your own eyes open, and you should. You absolutely should. But I think once you find the like initial, like what the word is, the initial, okay, this is maybe a prospect, then let other people do the work for you from there. Because you could be, you do a lot of like dancing around, and those for the initial stages to figure out if this person is it compatible in any way. And a lot of the serious questions that you need to ask are uncomfortable to ask right away. So you kind of dance around those issues. Meanwhile, you're spending a lot of time. And a lot of time, which is time wasted or spent, depending on which direction it goes. More importantly, the more time you spend together before you ask the relevant questions that need to be asked, you're only setting yourself up for disaster, because you're putting your hearts in front of your head, and that's only going to work against you. So as soon as you get that initial, for lack of a better word, as soon as you have the initial meet cute, find someone else to do the homework for you. You meet someone who finds, you speak any Hebrew?
I do not.
He said in Hebrew, he says, is a motzachin beinecha. The motzachin beinecha, they find favor in your eyes for whatever reason. Okay? Probably you met them in a pretty close circle of people. That's weird. What? Right. You probably met them in a pretty close circle of people. Chances are you're 1 or 2 levels maximum removed from that person. Right? I don't think they're like completely from Afghanistan, you never met them before, right? They're probably some 1, 2, 3 levels removed, not that many levels removed. So find someone, do a little homework, find someone who can do that homework for you. So fine. Are they interested in getting married? That's the first question you need. If they're not interested in getting married, some playboy is going to waste your time. So kick them to the curb and then move on. Family. What's their well, you don't even have to, it's normal. What's their level of observance? So compatible with your level of observance. Well, how do they want to have a family? Do they want to own a family? Where do they want to live? Some basic questions that you don't have to waste your time and their time figuring. That could be very helpful.
At what stage should you be asking this question?
Right away. Let someone else ask them for you. Yeah, pre-date. That way, if you square, let's say right? It's non-negotiable on one hand. It's non-negotiable your level of observance, right? I mean, the window, it doesn't have to be so small, but you have a relative window beyond, the right and left boundaries of which you don't want to go, right? Hopefully left, not hopefully right, yes, but that's a different conversation, right? So that's your window. And then you want to get married. You're not interested in wasting your time if someone doesn't want to get married. That's also not negotiable. I would assume most people want to have a family, or maybe they don't. I don't know, but you probably have a strong opinion about it either way. So you definitely don't want to go out for drinks, or even a coffee or anything with someone who is not on the same page with you about that. And no, they're not changing their mind. No, they're not going to do it because they love you. No. I mean, maybe way down the line, but definitely don't set yourself up for that. So again, like we said last time, it's probably a short list of 5 or less items on one hand. So square those away before. It's very easy. I mean, it's not very, but it's doable. So you don't have to waste your time or theirs. I think that's a really key fact.
So can you repeat them again? The first one you said?
Well, those are just a sample list. It can be different for every person. But I think for the people in this room, level of observance is probably a really important thing, right? Because Judaism is important to every one of the people in this room, judging by the fact that you're in this room. So that's, I think, the very key. Now, your window could be as large and as small as you want it to be, but if you have a window, right? Let's say you don't yet keep Shabbos for whatever reason. Okay, that's between you and God. Figure that one out later. And so if you're gonna meet someone who says, no way, I only keep Shabbos, and you're gonna whip out your phone on Shabbos, you're not compatible. And yes, you could grow together. I know all those arguments, but that's later. Best not to set yourself up for that. Or the other way around, right? And again, the marriage minded. Don't meet someone who's not interested in getting married. That's totally a waste of time. Family. Do you want to have kids? Do you not want to have kids? And size of family, right? You can argue 2 or 3 kids, whatever, 6 or 16 or 17. But if one person wants to have 1 kid, cat and dog, and that's it, and you want to have 4 or 5, that's a conversation you should have, not when you have the 1 kid, but before. What other value? I mean, there's other short. There's a short list.
Where you want to live?
Yeah, where you want to live is a big deal. It's a very big deal. It's not something. It's not inconsequential. Or
That sometimes changes. That's all I'm saying.
it could change, but for some people, let's say some people have it. It's a non-negotiable. I want to live, in a big city. It's not New York, Chicago, Miami, whatever, Paris. I don't know, whatever.
The only issue I have with what you're saying here is when I've asked people that knew me and other person, I was like, "Oh, it's just a first date. Just go on, and then you can figure that stuff out." But you're saying,
Yeah, why?
But every person you ever ask, I'm like, "Well, what about? I just figured it out. Let's go on the date."
I'll put it to you this way. If let's say the
Get that too. Huh?
I'll put it to you very simply. Think about it this way. Let's say don't answer the question, just for the argument's sake.
Okay.
I'm going to assume that you want to have children. Okay,
Yeah.
you don't have to be in there to say it. So let's say you do. Okay, and let's say you want to have a large family. Okay, now there's a girl that someone suggested, right? And her answer to the question is, do you want to have a large family? Her answer is no. When do you want to know that? You want to know it after dating her for a year, or do you want to know it now? When do you want to know that?
I guess sooner than later.
Depends on
Right.
negotiation.
But also,
I think it depends though, like.
but those things like it depends what your negotiables are.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Is that your non-negotiable? Then yeah,
I'm saying in this conversation,
it's
the
that
hypothetically that for you, it's not negotiable.
Then might want to have fun.
You don't know if it's non-negotiable for her.
She
Like,
has
just
to
be-
pop the babies out.
But if it's not, if it's a non-negotiable to you, why would you want to hinge on a maybe?
Yeah,
Because until you meet them and see if there's even any.
Because, but why would
that means your values are
It's
really,
like,
really not
if
on the
you're-
same
if
page.
you're going to a business deal, and I'm like, I'm willing to go to $1 million, and they're like, I don't know, maybe they're willing to come down to $1 million, but maybe they're not. Why would you want to waste that proposal time of 2-3 months going back and forth to maybe they'll do
Right.
it? It's-
Listen, if you're on an island and your name is Robinson Crusoe and there was nobody else, and that was the only option available, so maybe you can negotiate it. But that's not. God has his ways of figuring out who should go with who. So that's one way, right? If after 5 years you tried everything else and you got to circle back, we'll see. Chances are she probably changed her mind by then too. But until then, there's other options that you should be pursuing. I think. And again, you don't do that for everything. I'm not talking about if you're non-negotiable is that you have to have 3 cars and one should be 4-wheel drive. That's ridiculous.
You're talking about your
We're talking about some
sexual-
real core
When you ask you about these things that you're non-negotiables, every single person that I ask, every Everson or rabbi or friend, or like, just go on a date, you'll figure it out. That's always.
I
the
would
answer.
push back a little bit on that.
I'll still take your time. There's only so many dates that you want to go.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I'm just saying, like, you're saying to get these people, but most people are just like, just get out on that date. Most people just want you to go on the date. The biggest.
I think that
just a couple.
That attitude is relevant to the things that are like beyond your short list of absolute values. That, yes, go on a date, figure it out, see what happens.
Anything you ever ask, so just get a cup of coffee, see.
I don't know. I would resist. I would push back a little bit on that.
I think that people are just trying to get a copy, don't think you have that many values, they have too many values. So discredit you and the other person.
Right. But some things are core, right?
Or they thought.
You know,
thought those things through.
so like if
That's
you're
one of
core-
them.
Yeah.
Either they think they thought them through or they did.
It is like a typical answer, especially with actual patient shotgun.
Because I think one question in particular that's particularly relevant and where I would probably agree with them is, about looks. For some reason, men are very into that. And I think that, just go on a first date and see what happens. Because chances are, because that I would say, even if it's a core value of yours, which again, if it is, could have a conversation about that also. But if it's a core value that that your wife being an absolute bombshell, then, go for coffee. Because chances are, if you like someone, they start looking a lot better. If you don't like them, they don't look
That's
so
not
good.
non-negotiable either, so. If it is, now obviously, yeah, but
Right.
I'm talking about these non-negotiable.
Right, okay.
things that
But
you-
a guy who says non-negotiable, she has to be absolutely drop-dead gorgeous. So then, as a wiser, hopefully, mentor, I would say, go.
We're
Go
not
for
talking about
coffee.
those kind of things.
You like her, she's gonna start looking drop-dead gorgeous. But other things but I would really limit it to that one, and I can't think of any others on top of my head. That maybe could change, but other core values are like a part of a value system, like children.
Why would you limit it from the girl's perspective?
I mean, if that question is the same, I'd also go the other way around as well, but what else?
You only want to marry rich.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that could probably fluctuate.
Don't do this, Dave.
Okay.
I think the more tech data these days.
Yeah, because I think, because that goes back to our class discussion that we had in the second week, about values. If you had to, values are things that you would almost literally give your life up for. So if you would give your life up for being wealthy, I don't know, then I think you have to have different conversations, It's not about marriage. It's about, I don't know, maybe you had some childhood trauma with poverty or something. But,
So
okay.
for guys, it's no time.
I didn't know that's way too stereotypical, but it could be. And it could be vice versa also.
So, yeah, reverse. No.
Totally reverse, yes. That's just the stereotype because stereotypes are easy because they're stereotypes. Okay, shall we jump into so now uncertainty. Uncertainty plagues us all. Okay. And by the way, whatever ideas, what's interesting about today's conversation is this is really not so much specific to dating and marriage. I mean, we're going to apply it in that context, and that's where our discussion is going to take place. But these ideas are really relevant to anything uncertain, any uncertainty, or any uncertainty, and its close cousin. What's the close cousin of uncertainty? Doubt, right? And what's the next cousin?
Fear.
Thank you, anxiety, right? Which plagues everybody today, and is fueling the multi-billion therapy dollar industry, right? So, well, the ideas that we're going to learn today are relevant to that overall. So they're probably a good thing to take it. So we're going to start with an exercise. Thanks for the question.
Thanks for the answers.
Yeah, conversation, the discussion is more important than okay. So you have the idea, you have the things in front of you on your phones. So you see in the first exercise, there's a list there of things that we're gonna use on a scale of 1 to 5 because that's exactly. I don't know why I can do this.
It's on the Sunday chat.
Um,
First was on the Sunday chat.
Okay, yeah.
That's great.
Not on the chat, that's the first.
So who's in control? On a scale of 1 to 5. Okay, 1. How did I write it there?
Yeah.
1 being completely in my control. 5. That's not so intuitive. Whatever. 1 means it's not intuitive. I'm switching it. Sorry. I'll have to stick to the writer. 5 means it's completely in my control. 1 means it's completely out of my control. Okay? Or 0 means it's totally out of my control, right? But 5 means I really control. Look at those 5 things. Place of residence, career path, lifespan, level of comfort, financial status, and family size. For the long term, how much do you think you control those things in your life? 5 means you control them all the way. 0 means you have no control whatsoever.
To some degree, I think some more than others.
But you got to give a median, median score.
We're reading all 5 actually.
All 5 is, yeah.
Yeah, for the sake of brevity.
Like, which are you stressing more? Because level of comfort is very different than financial status. Some people are better. Okay.
Level of comfort is the mentality.
Yeah, some people are better than others.
Okay, you got to give a median score. I know this is not hard science, but
Yeah.
you have the Sunday chat. Apparently, it's on Sunday chat.
You have my phone. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, someone.
Okay. We're gonna go around the table. I always start here, so I'm gonna start like right from the.
What about the sides? You never catch
I did this. I did the.
like on the bench or something.
We get every questions where we start. Okay, so gentleman in the hat right across me. You're gonna give your number first. And like if you could just lump all together, give a median score of what you think. I know we could do for each one, but it's gonna take time. Everyone's gonna talk and get bored of each other since then.
I see we should give a number and keep going.
Yeah. You control all of those at a level of 5.
I think if you 100% you prioritize that, then all of them could be a 5.
All right.
As in you can control it. It's 5.
Yeah, it's 5 means so. Yeah. Okay, good.
So,
Listen, remember, there's no right or wrong here. Okay, I have to say space. Nobody judge. So, what was your name?
If finding your disparity number 1, then it's 0.
Okay. I said the first 5. 6. You know what? Let's do it that way because we're not going to go around twice. It'll take way too long. So do the first 5 with 1 score, and then the 6th one, which is your life partner. Give that its own score, okay?
Can I ask your question? If you're rating the other thing as one, why can't you put the same, like your reasoning behind it a 5 for this 5 minutes?
No, I think it's one, if you're gonna rank, life partner as priority number 1, then I think the others are gonna fall out of
If you're
wayside.
dedicated to your job, you know.
If you're dedicated, like, I'm only gonna take someone who wants to live on the upper east side of New York City, then.
All right, so you scored 5 on the first 5, and number 6 is what?
1 or 5.
You're a pretty binary thinker. You okay? So let's move clockwise.
Oh, hi, I'm Donnie.
Hey, Don.
Hi, okay, so I guess the first 1 through 5, I give a 3.
Wait, okay.
And then I guess number 6, I give, well, 1 being like, what, totally not,
Out of your control, right?
1.
Okay. Let's move it along.
Okay, I think first one also probably a 3, the last, I don't know, I'm somewhere between, I guess maybe 3 or 4, I think maybe I was a bit higher on that one.
Okay, fair enough.
1 through 5, I give 4. And number 6.
Okay,
I was thinking the same, like read letters first, 5, like a 4, and then like maybe, yeah, 4, and the last one is 3. Or,
okay. Maria? 5, I could have called that one. Yeah,
1 and 4 has the rest of God's hand in it.
1.
You have 1. I have 1% control of my life. Like you can plan all you want.
You get 100% for your exam, okay, so.
Okay, 1 and 1, okay?
I was leaning between 1 and 2.
1 and 2.
Also the same idea as like Shem's really in control of everything, but there is that idea of you putting in your effort and, you know,
Doubtless.
yeah.
Oh,
So
okay,
that's
good.
why I was kind of between 1 and 2, because like a lot of it is also the effort.
Good, okay. Well, you skipped the people on the bench.
Yeah. So 1 to 5, I hope I could give it a 4 or 5. I hope, but maybe. it was
Okay.
slow. And for life partner, I hope to be able to give it a 4.
All right, magnifique. Next.
so for 1 through 5, I would give it like the, maybe like a 3 or 4.
Okay,
Then for 6, I would say like 2.
okay, great. Then
5 is in control.
5 is in control,
Okay,
right?
then I would give 1 through 5 a 3 and number 6 and 4.
6, 4, okay. How are you?
I didn't see it.
You didn't see it, so you'll see it. We'll circle back.
I didn't say those.
Okay, we'll circle back. How about you?
I think they're one and all, pretty much one and all the same. I mean, there are things that you could do to, I guess, alter the outcomes a little bit, but I would do both the 2.
Both the 2, okay?
I'll find just the issue of 3 and 5 on the first 5, just in terms of if you actually can control that, because I think Sharon has a stronger hold on that, and people struggle with that stuff. So I would say in general a 4, but those 2, it's like a 1 or 2.
And number 6,
And number 6, 3.
3, okay?
First set, I'm gonna go with a 3, and the last one, life partner, I'm gonna go with 4.
Okay, great.
Ooh. She's like, notes and all that.
She's got science. It's got science.
Actually, no.
All right, let's move it along.
I'm going between, I'm categorizing them all at the same.
Yes.
I'm deciding between a 1 and a 3, because a 1 is like a Shem, but we're also still here, so we're debating if to do like half and half or the same one. So,
Okay,
yeah.
and that's for all. That's a, okay,
So 3 down the line for everything.
3 down the line. All
If
right.
that was in control, but you have to get off the bench.
Thanks for the sports metaphor. I like that. Okay.
I think 5 for me, 1 to 5 is, it's, you can try to plan and do everything you can, but at the end of the day, like, God has a plan for you, so.
So what's your number? 5, not in your control.
I don't know.
Right. Okay. Good. Okay, great. Let's move it along.
Wait, I thought five is on.
There was one. It's because she actually read it. It's because she actually read it.
Oh, one big control. I was going with it.
Yes. No, I knew because she actually read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, blonde. 4. Okay. Rabbi Yayin, what's your answer?
I'm gonna go with Nancy. We have zero control. That's the truth.
Who's Nancy?
Nancy is.
All right, there. Okay.
The one who actually read it.
The one who actually. Okay.
Can I like, give an example?
Yeah, let's just get these two because they didn't go yet, and then we'll. Huh? Dale. Just like they are. No?
I would say both are pretty same level. Life is a little bit.
Okay. Good. Maria's example, and then we're gonna put in. Yes. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Maria wants to share one thing, and then we're going to jump in a little bit because based on the replies here, we have a lot of work to do.
I'd have to say. Yeah.
Huh?
A lot of us were listening to this. Yeah, a lot of.
No, I know. I understood it that way. That's why. No, I did. She inverted it, but I got it.
Oh.
You said 4 in control on the dating and 3. I got you.
On the last item about your spouse, how can anybody say that you do not have control? Let's say you're presented with a person. This is your partner for the rest of your life, and you have to say yes or no. You have full control.
Okay. Good. So we're gonna. I think it'll be clarified. Maria, I think the answer to that question. Maria, I think the answer to that will be clarified as we go through the material. All right. So let's. Okay. There's a lot of material in front of you. We are not going to read it all. We're not going to read it all. But if there's any, there's definitely one big idea that we have to convey to this crowd. Okay, and that is, like I said, there's no right or wrong answer, but there's definitely an idea that we have to share. We really have to take home, and that is that there are elements of life that we control. There and in every element of life, we have a certain measure of control. But as some did mention, as you go on in life, you'll bump into this truth more and more. And if you don't, it's gonna hit you on the head until you realize it. That it's absolutely not in your control. And it's not, this example I'm about to give is not here in the text, but just take this home because I'm living with it for the past couple of weeks. Here's a very, very easy visual. We all know the story, and if you don't, you'll hear it now. You know the story of baby Moshe and the basket down the river? What happens next? Bacha, right? What happens? She reaches out her hand. Right? Bacha is an Egyptian princess. She reaches out her hand to get the basket. What happens next? Her hand extends. Right? Because the basket was out of reach. We don't know how long it was out of reach. We can assume it was very much out of reach. And miraculously, her hand extends to reach the basket and bring it to her. So now let me ask you a simple question. Why did she extend her hand if it was too far out of reach? Was she expecting a miracle? We can assume she wasn't. She was an Egyptian princess. She wasn't.
She wasn't going to try. She would feel immense guilt.
But it's useless. It's too far.
Yeah,
it's not going to reach it.
I think it's human nature. Most people attempt something even though they can't.
They just spin your wheels and they're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Why?
Why can't she literally, she was trying to like swim towards it. She stretched her hand to that of understanding that she'd have to keep at this damn thing. And then I made a miracle and made it much quicker.
Okay.
On a basic level, she was trying to get it. I mean.
Okay.
That's
maybe.
It's a sports question.
Yeah.
And so How many times you had a fly ball where you knew it was over your head, but you still jumped for it?
Okay, we're gonna get another sports metaphor, by the way. Yeah? Yeah? All right. So here's another answer. I'm gonna give you food for thought.
You didn't give-
The other answer is like this. One answer is like this. I'll agree with you, but I have to add one very, very important factor, and that is believing Jews. We have something in life called, anybody? God. Okay, God plays a role in your life, a very, very big one. Now, and here's how it works. You stretch out your hand as far as you can. Now, it's not that you're expecting a miracle per se, but in life, there's a large gap between the process and the outcome. Not always is the outcome directly correlated to the process. And as you go forward in life, and as you get married, get going, and you have children, and they teach you all kinds of things, you'll discover, and even in business, the more business you do, and the more deals you make, the more money you make, the more money you lose, you'll see it more and more and more. The gap between outcome and process is outcome and process is often huge. And the only way to explain it is God fills in the rest. Now, does that mean you should do nothing and expect it to rain down on you? No, you stretch out your hand as far as you can. Once you stretch out your hand as far as you can, namely to the edge of your human effort, God picks up the rest and extends it forward to the desired outcome. And this is not miracles. This is not spiritual dogma. I'm telling you, this is something you will find in life again and again and again. Now, that's the big idea of today's class, and really in one sentence. We control in life very, very little.
It's the opposite.
No, we control so little. We do our best.
You're the one reaching out. Once you reach
Right.
out, God does the rest, but you have to do the initial
So
work.
you only have control over that. And sometimes in the larger scheme of things, that could be 1%.
That's the full control.
For sure. Okay. But I'm saying you don't have control over the outcome. You have control over whatever process you can do. You have control over that. The outcome is entirely out of your control. Does that mean you shouldn't go through the process? No. And we'll come upon it later in the class. I don't know, I'm going to go out of order here, but I'm going to give you a very simple sports metaphor again. And in sports, you do this all the time. You ever heard the term called trust the process? What does trust the process mean?
We usually say that when you're ready to give up.
That has to do training, because you train, and the input you put into the training.
Okay, so I don't know it in every context. Yes, I don't know it in every context, but I tell you from what I know. I know baseball. Okay, so in baseball, what they do is they train, and not only they train, every professional athlete has a huge reams of data that they know about their own body and exactly how they operate on the athletic field. And let's take the simple example of a batter swinging a bat, right? That's as simple as it looks to us. So in professional sports, that's like a hugely scientific thing. And they work on it for years. Now, every player has their way they do it. The way they stand in the box, the way they spread their legs apart, the way they bang their elbows, the way they turn their body, exactly which angle they do the bat. Everything is very scientific. And every player has something that they've tailored to their own physique. All once in a while happens, a player goes in what's called a slump. It's just not working. That's when they say, trust the process. Keep on doing what you're doing. Eventually you'll break out. And you know what? It happens. It really happens. I mean, I know I follow sports, baseball is. It happens. A player can do the same swing for a month with very little results. And all of a sudden, snap out of it and they start hitting again. And I always say, don't change anything. Trust the process. And it works. So if it works in sports, it works in life. That we have a process. God gave us a process. And we trust that process. And we do what we can. And the results, though, are almost entirely out. God gives us the results. So let's read a lot of that inside. Okay, text 1. Anybody?
Yoni is dying to read.
Yoni?
I think the volunteer over there.
I can read.
This one.
Okay.
It's all about chance. Marriage is a leap of faith. Marriage is the most important event in the life of a man or woman. Leaves an incredible imprint in one's entire life. Such a decision requires considerable thought and cannot be done in haste. That said, regarding all events that transpire in a person's life, be they large or small,
It is impossible to take into account all the eventual particulars and details and each and every possible permutation. After all, a human being is extremely limited. It is impossible for him to conceptualize all the eventualities of each, every aspect in detail and their possible consequences. Thus, to a certain extent, it is necessary for a person to utilize his faith, trust in God, that he will see the matter through in a goodly manner and all its many details. The same is so with regard to a shidduch match. It is literally impossible to find something in this world that is entirely perfect, and it is also impossible to assess with perfect accuracy how matters will turn out. If the most important aspects are quite satisfactory, then quite often it is proper to forego on minor matters that do not seem to be in perfect order. This is especially so since one may only be imagining that these matters are not in order when, the truth be told, they are in point of fact quite fine as well.
Good. I want to unpack it a little bit, but let's read the second one as well because it speaks to the same idea with just another one more added layer. So for simplicity's sake, we're just going to use the clock. Okay, so the person to your right.
To my right?
This is the.
Is that not how the clock works?
To highlight, marriage is not some sort of mathematical equation where matters are perfectly calculated, everything must be 100% compatible. While marriage is most certainly a serious matter with lifelong ramifications, experience shows the appropriate Jewish approach is to look for the necessary components to build a strong foundation for life together that is grounded in the Torah and mitzvot. Together with that, it is critical to lean on one's faith and Hashem, to trust that His gracious oversight extends to every individual and that all the other matters will work out.
Good. Very good. Thank you. So I want to unpack 3 points from the comments, the letters you just read. We could read more, but many of them speak to the same theme. This idea that if you want to visualize it as, with Batya's hand, that's one visualization. Another visualization is like, the literal leap of faith. Like when you picture a leap of faith, what does it look like in your head? Like, what do you see? Huh? Spider-Man? You see someone jumping off of something, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones. Okay. Something probably it's like a high precipice of some sorts. Right. What is Spider-Man jumping off? A building?
It's quote one of you said it's all different faith.
Jumps off of
You have to get his power if you jump off the building.
building. Indiana Jones jumps off a cliff.
So like part of the riddle is a leap of faith and he has to step into this, but it's like a hidden path.
Okay. Right. So it's like someone jumping off of something into the nether, into like this ethereal nether space, right? So think about, so in that visual, I'll just take the simple one of a person jumping off a cliff. Okay. Spider-Man jumping off a building. Good. So he jumps off the building, right? But how did he get to there? He got there somehow, right? He climbed up to the top of the building. Or before he's a superhero, right? You climb up, or you walk, or you climb, trek to the edge of the cliff, and then you take the leap of faith. So there's that. So that's the vision. I want you to take the full visual in mind. There's the trek up to the edge of the cliff, which is the process, the science that we're going to use, the due diligence that we're going to take, and all those steps that we talked about in the past. And then once you get to the edge, then you jump on. You jump off the bottom of the cliff, so then you just fall on your face, right? You're not going to, and that's nothing, you're just clumsy, right? But if you take the time to go all the way up to the edge and then you take the leap of faith, right? Then we can hope that you turn into Spider-Man. Yep. So that's kind of, so what do I want to bring up from this? So I said 3 points. Number one, first of all, before you get anywhere, let's say you're finding, you're finding this process frustrating, or it's not getting, or you're not finding the right person. Okay, so that doesn't mean that it's broken. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get anywhere. It means that you're still climbing to the edge of the cliff. At some point, God is going to intervene and make that final step, that final leap. Let me clarify that a little more. Let me clarify that a drop more. The knowledge that there's going to be a huge leap at some point, that knowledge is comforting already when you're making your trek up to the edge. Because if everything is entirely hinged upon your own efforts, so then if my efforts are not bearing fruit right now, what does that mean? Just, using
You have to keep trying.
inferential logic. But if I keep trying and I'm spinning my wheels for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, a decade, right?
Mountain's taller than you thought.
The statistics are going to start working against you. What?
On the process, you're getting close.
Right, but okay, good. Yeah, but in the grind of what you're doing, it can become discouraging because I've been doing the same thing for so long and it's not getting me in.
You're getting better at it.
Okay, good. But that's one. But the knowledge that at some point there's going to be an intervention, so to speak. There's going to be that leap, and you don't know where it's going to come from. Like I said, sometimes it hits you on the head, almost literally. It's going to happen. It always. Okay, good. So you're spinning your wheels, maybe, right? You're spinning your wheels today, but you never know. Tomorrow could be that point where you reach the edge. That the human effort has paid off. You reach the edge, and then God will make it better for you. And there's going to be that point. If you trust, if you have that faith, again, there's a lot of faith there. This is a little dogmatic, yes, I admit, but dogma's not a bad thing. If you have that faith, it can be extremely comforting already beforehand in the grind when you're making your way to the edge of the cliff. That's number one.
Can I give another example of that? Like a baby when learning to walk, they don't have a faith, they're just having fun trying to walk and fall all the time, and eventually it just happens when they walk.
Good, yeah, exactly. Yes, there's permutations to the idea in 100,000 areas of life. That's-
In terms of shading, how do you know that you got to the edge?
Okay. One second. So number two. Now, number two. Very good. That's my second point. That's what the Rebbe's letters you read just now. And we'll read one more. That it's not math. How do you know? Well, based on everything we've learned until now, you know very simply. Do your values align? Yes or no? You have, how many values do you really, really have? I don't think you have more than that could fit on my one hand. Do your values really align? Right? Are you reasonably attracted to one another? Yes. Are you ready to commit to one another in theory? Yes. So this is where you take up. Then you're ready. You're ready. You're ready to take a leap of faith. Could there be another parking spot available somewhere on the other side of town? Maybe, but that's irrelevant. This is your time to take that leap of faith. Will you be? And you're going to spend your whole life questioning. Maybe there was someone else. So if you spend your whole life questioning, that means you never took that leap of faith. You never believed in the God who led you to the edge of the cliff. But if you believe in the God who led you to the edge of the cliff, you believe in the same God who takes you and jumps you off the edge. Yeah.
I think a lot of guys always think that there's always like the grass is greener.
So we have to vanish.
I always think that I
Just guys, right?
Anybody who thinks that way. We have to abolish that way of thinking. Yeah.
Everything is good. Everything is just good. It's good, not great. It's good. That's enough.
Listen, I can't give it's a good question. It's a good question, and it's a tricky answer. And I wouldn't be able to give you like a one-size-fits-all answer for such a scenario. Usually, as a rule of thumb in that situation, I would say give it more time. Spend more time with each other and see where it goes. It will probably go in one direction. If the increased time you spend with one another makes you more attracted to one another, then dial it up and go. If the opposite happens, then that itself is an indicator.
What's the timing on that?
So actually, the letter of the Rebbe that we're going to leave right here. The Rebbe said 3-4 dates.
3-4 days.
But again, that was a certain audience. So I don't know how we can transpose that to our audience. You need a good friend or a good mentor to walk you through that.
3-4 days.
Someone who knows you and someone who knows them. That's the answer. And again, yes, and I say the word dates though because hanging out together every day is not good. You need you need dedicated times.
I have a quick question, hopefully quick. What's this idea of, the shared and everything? It's like, okay, you have one person that was always supposed to be for you. All of our forefathers had multiple wives.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to deal with it after this. But it's a good question. There's other questions with Bashert. What about someone who gets remarried, someone who's,
That's it, yeah.
What, get 2 Basherts? These are good questions. These are good questions, but I'm gonna have to show them. Okay. If you know who the Beni, you know who the Beni Shchai was?
Yeah.
So he has a long tshuva about it.
Really.
If you're interested in it. If you're reading the original Hebrew, it's a lot of fun, a lot of Kabbalah. Anyways, okay. Let's read one more letter of the Rebbe on this topic. Text number 4. The gentleman with the beautiful pinky for red glass, right? So on your right.
Marriage consists of constructing a complete edifice, one that will endure for all eternity. As such, it must be an edifice and house that is united and coupled in all aspects and emotional aspects as well, not only joined intellectually. On the other hand, one cannot always easily discern when the intellectual deliberations end and the emotional considerations begin. Quite often, although one may think that this is purely a matter of intelligence, reflection, in point of fact, it is a large part, if not overwhelmingly so, a matter of emotional consideration. It is therefore my hope that after you meet with him another few times, you'll be able to discern this matter for yourself, that there is not only an intellectual connection, but an emotional one as well. In the light of the above, if you are sure that as of yet you harbor no emotional feelings at all, i.e. neither positive nor negative, then it would seem that it is too soon to make a decision regarding this matter. However, if you see that the positive emotional feelings are also manifest, then it may be God's will that the shidduch will be with Hatzlacha and in good and auspicious.
So you see the Rebbe's approach? The Rebbe's approach is not, yeah, moving together, live together for 5 years, split your credit card, see how it works out, maybe you like each other, see how other things are compatible. That's not the point. There's never a point if you're using the human element, the human calculations and saying, this is completely in my control. I'm going to check off every box of, potential life together before I'm going to, sign on the dotted line or slip the ring or whatever metaphor you want to use. First of all, there's no end to that. You can never be sure. You can never be absolutely sure. There is a leap of faith. Marriage is always going to be a leap of faith. It's one of those things. It's fine. It's ironic. That's kind of going back to the original exercise we started with. The ironic thing about life is that the larger things in life that are really, really important and really meaningful, it's almost by definition, the larger it is, the less in control you are of it. That's the way it works. The more means, what you're going to wear this morning, go right ahead. Like you're in full control of what you're going to wear this morning. I mean, sometimes not even that, right? But that's the triviality. The triviality is you could, if it's going to be onion or poppy seed, that one you could decide. I'll leave that one for you. But who's your life partner going to be? How many kids you're going to have? How long you're going to live? What's your financial status going to be in life? As much as you think you can control it, like I said, you're going to hit on the head a couple of times, many times, and you'll see more and more. We are not in control of these things. Does that mean we shouldn't do what we're supposed to do to, ensure the best outcomes possible? Of course, we go through the process, but ultimately what we have control over is almost entirely process, very little result. Results is up to God. So in a marriage, trying to check off all the boxes before and saying that that's going to be what I need to know till I actually make that jump, make that leap, is a foolhardy exercise. Yes.
In your life, as an example.
Oh yeah, all the time.
No, but like you, for instance, you wanted to be a rabbi. You studied to be a rabbi, and there was a little faith and became a rabbi. You wanted to get married.
Right. Even in that, by the way, it didn't look exactly the way I thought about it.
But does it look
20,
better
10 or
or
even-
it looks worse than you?
No, it's a good question. It depends on when.
I think it's better. You look happy.
Looking back, I think that comes in one day. Process of coming to terms.
I think it's also what you make of your situation. At that
Exactly.
point. If you're gonna decide
This
to be
knowledge
happy,
itself,
then
this knowledge itself, that I'm literally 0% in control, that knowledge itself keeps me incredibly sane and happy, right? My wife has a cozy business, right? So we just brought in 3 containers from China over the past month, right? And of course, each one got stopped by customs, each one. And that could go on forever. Remember, we had last season a container held by customs, and they held it for 3 months. And by the time we got it, it was almost too late because it's, fashion is disposable. So if you don't get it in time, you don't ship it out in time, it's almost worthless. So by the time we got that last container, it was almost worthless, and we're still sitting with most of the merchandise. We have nothing to do with it. So we lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So now this container got stuck again. And my wife is going crazy.
As you said was.
Yeah. And I always say the same thing. It's so little in our control. That gets me to sleep peacefully, gets me up in the morning peacefully. Who knows? I don't know. And then they released it Baruch Hashem last week, so now we have it actually coming. So yeah, it's every day. And once you become a parent with your children will let you know that very quickly. You have very little control. You do whatever you can and you invest and you pour it in, and then they take left-hand turns, right-hand turns all the time. So yeah, I see it in my life 1000% every
But
single
like
day.
you have a big picture in your mind.
Namely, tell me.
Like you're probably not worried your kids are gonna be drug addicts and end up in prison.
Yeah,
Are you worried?
we'll talk afterwards. I have no idea.
You have no idea, but it's
I'm doing my best, I
It's
think.
very unlikely. And it
Nothing is
doesn't-
unlikely, especially today. Nothing is unlikely today. Anything can happen, and I'm very well aware of that. And we all should be. Okay.
So, terms you said like he's no.
But then like why go to church school? Why do I-
In what?
In what terms you
Hedge
said
your
there's no
bets.
control about getting married?
Yeah, so it's likely more.
Yes,
likely
you don't have
for-
control 100% over who it's going to be and how exactly it's going to work out.
Yeah, so how is actually.
It's more like.
How you
That actually makes it easier because you go through the, like I said, you climb up to the edge of the cliff.
Okay.
So you do what you can.
Okay.
So you,
But I
again,
don't know.
you want to get married.
It doesn't matter.
You wrote down to yourself your core values. You've done your homework. You found someone who matches on that level. You've been together for however long it needs. You know, it doesn't need to be very, very long.
Right. Let's say if a girl wanna get married, most of the girls I believe like wanna get married.
Yeah, but
What
the
they
big
can do if
picture
the
is
guy
there.
is not like in the same, attitude.
Well, that's why I said before,
I think.
meet someone, don't waste your time with someone who's not on the same page and that.
But I'm
sense
saying
to begin with.
Guys,
So that makes it easier for you. That makes it easier for you.
I mean,
That makes it easier, you know why?
I'm not
You tell me why.
I don't like.
You've narrowed down your prospects.
Because just,
What?
You've narrowed things down. You've narrowed everything down.
But how do you know? You go out on the date this guy again and again.
Don't go out. Don't go out with someone who's not interested in getting married.
But you don't know.
Why not?
You don't know.
Ask,
Why? They said like,
no, ask to a third party before you leave.
how I can ask a third party. But
Why not?
it's not like, right,
It goes for it.
online, then we
You keep someone you like, find a mutual friend. Good. Right here, still have it. You don't want to waste your time.
I mean, I guess so.
You want to spend time with a guy, get to like him, like you, or find out 6 months down the line. Yeah, I also, I know it's not. I know it's not. We try to make it as close as we can.
So like, you want to know what.
Yeah, but like, I want to spend no
Experience.
start finding out.
So if you come to asking questions yourself very soon, go right ahead. And if the guy gets turned off, you don't say anything, because he just narrows.
It's nice.
No, there's not one thing. You don't know the beginning, but you want
Therefore.
See, the older you are, the less time you need, the older, more mature. All right, let's carry on. Let's conclude. That's counterintuitive. I know you don't know.
So what?
Okay, well, let's wrap this up. We went through some. I want to cover just another 1 or 2 points. So I think one big idea came across. Did it come across?
Which one?
I think we pretty much focused on one idea. God has control. You trek up to the edge of the cliff. When you do that, what I mean by that is go through the process. We spoke about it for 3 weeks until now, right? I wasn't so dogmatic until this. So check out your, align within yourself, verify within yourself, what are your own values? Get an advocate to get someone for you. Ask good questions before you get out, before you even get into the ring.
So are you saying in this room, like everyone wants to have a family and
I don't
get
know that.
married? Like, for instance,
I mean, I would assume most people in this room want to get married. Yeah, I'm assuming
okay, so you're saying it's not guaranteed for all of us.
nothing's guaranteed. But
I
people,
say guaranteed
people
if
surprise you every day. I don't know. I don't know you. I don't know anyone really here, so I don't know. But I'm assuming, yeah. I'm assuming the majority of people here want to get married. They probably wouldn't be here otherwise. I'm assuming of that. I'm gonna go out on a limb and think that most people also want to have a family, but maybe not. But that's not relevant. What the particulars are is not as relevant as what is that you should know. What do you mean?
Will it happen for all of us or not?
Do I know? Only he knows. I can assume that if the people here will follow a process and do their due diligence beforehand and not waste time with all the other stuff to get in the way, and put a lot of faith in their creator, yes, I assume that you'll all get married a lot sooner than you would have otherwise.
The Truman that said marriage plans God laughs, that the Truman?
Either someone says it, I meant craft and God laugh, but yeah, okay. So in text number 7. So text number 6a and 6b are all about the shotgun. I think we talked about the shotgun enough. What? I think we talked about the shotgun enough. I can't advocate for that enough. I'm not going to beat it to death. I think it's really important. Again, whether it's a conventional person who literally has a ledger, or if it's a friend, if it's an advocate, a mentor, a third party, someone else on your team. Don't go on this alone. It could be very helpful. And the only reason that we only abandoned that, a couple of decades ago, and it was you ask me, it was a drastic mistake. Nobody's happier for it. Okay, except for a couple people in some fantasy movies, but otherwise in real life, it doesn't really check out so well. That's number 2. And this is just a general point. Text 7 is a letter from the Rebbe about anxiety. We all have anxiety for everything, and in today's day and age, increasingly so. And so you're anxious about, especially when it comes to dating. Oh my God, I like partner. I don't know. Oh, I don't know. So it makes me anxious of thinking about it. So in this letter, the Rebbe tells, I believe it's addressed to a woman. And the Rebbe tells her, it's okay. Anxiety alone is not a reason to not say. It's not a reason alone to not say yes, to not move forward. Because anxiety, you should understand that a certain measure of anxiety. Again, I'm not talking about clinical stuff or whatever. That's a different story. But a certain measure of anxiety is normal. The fact that you're anxious doesn't mean that it's disqualified. That's not a disqualifying factor at hand. That's something to bear in mind. So let's read that. Number 7.
So here's what he said in the letter from 1962. I received your letter of December 28th, in which you write about the proposition of a shidduch, which generally seems to be acceptable, but you seem to be afraid, etc. Your feeling can be explained on the basis of 2 factors. A, as you yourself write to hitherto, you have no responsibilities whatever, or as you put it, you were treated like a baby without being given the opportunity to think for yourself. It is therefore clear that now that you have to make an important decision and enter into a life of responsibility and independence, this makes you feel uneasy, although I would not say very frightened, as you put it. B, a feeling of anxiety in such a case is not unusual, even where the person has not been treated like a baby. For marriage is an important and serious step which affects the rest of one's life. And as it is stated in the text of the blessing, it is a binyan adad, an everlasting edifice. It is therefore natural that young people should approach this with a feeling of some anxiety and awe. On the other hand, if the shidduch is a suitable one can go into it with a feeling of absolute confidence, for it is within the very natural order of things, and is also a commandment of the Creator. Hence, it is assured of God's blessing. The basic requirement, however, is that the shidduch be a suitable one, namely that both parties should be similar background and world outlook, and above all should be determined in the resolution to mature mutually build a truly Jewish home on everlasting foundations of the Torah and mitzvot.
Good, thank you. So in other words, if your expectation, if what you're looking for is that we should be totally at ease with each other, and I should be super confident, and everything should make sense, and I should have all my boxes checked, and everything is just working out perfectly, and I shouldn't have any feeling of anxiety whatsoever, and that's the expectation for which you're looking for, and until then, you're not going to be able to make a commitment. So then the bad news is that that's not coming. And the good news is that you don't have to look forward to that. That's not natural, and that's not what's even should be expected. What should be expected is that you go through a certain process, square away your values, come from this, be on the same, like the Rebbe wrote here, a similar background, the world outlook, which is another way of saying values. We're saying the same thing to death. And you should be reasonably attracted to each other. You don't have to necessarily be completely, gobsmacked, infatuated. It's not necessary. If you are, then great. But you should be reasonably attracted to one another. You should be comfortable with one another. You should feel that you're friends with one another. You can envision yourself living your rest of your life with this person. And if you're a little anxious about it, that's completely normal. You can still proceed. These are the big ideas. There's a lot more text here, but we're not going to go through it today. So just to review the key point, there's really one key point that we shared today. One key point is the rest of the letter is about specific things. You should spend more time with the person, less time with the person, depending on the situation. Those are for particulars. You could discuss that with your friend, mentor, Rabbi Rebbitzin, or whatever when it comes up. But the major thing is something in attitude. The attitude has to be, and again, this is for marriage in this particular instance, but really it's for life. The attitude, and this is both from a religious perspective, that this is what should be, but I don't like sentences so much. I start with should, because, I don't know. So I'm going to approach it from a different way. It's not because it should be, it should, but also it's literally just helpful. It's good for you. Yes. If your approach is what's in it for me, there's a lot in it for you if you adopt this approach. It's an attitude in life. We control this much, not a lot. We control a certain process, and we should go through the process. We should do our due diligence the best we can, as we discussed the past couple of weeks. But ultimately, there's so much more that God's going to fill in. So rely on Him. Rely on Him. Do you know how it's going to work out? No, you don't, and that's okay. He's going to fill it in. It's going to happen. Trust that process. God will fill in the rest.
I want to add one thing based on what you said.
Sure.
Is if we could apply the same to people who get frustrated and dating a long, long time, maybe they're just mountain is higher to climb, so they jump off the cliff.
Right.
Instead of just saying, I'm doing everything wrong, what's wrong with me? Which maybe something is wrong with you, but maybe, in other words, maybe you're climbing the wrong mountain, but maybe not. Maybe you just have a bigger mountain than the other person. That's it, and just instead of beating yourself up, doesn't help.
I think in mountain time,